Praise God. A beautiful song. When we gather with the saints, I feel like we're with royalty. Our church family and serving God is our life. I'm sorry. I had a prayer meeting in the prayer room. And the Lord's already blessed me. And I hope I can get through this, but praise God. The title of the sermon tonight will be, Do we have a heart to finish? A heart to finish. It's one thing we've heard all our lives. It's one thing to start. But do I have the heart? Do you have the heart to finish this race? Have you ever seen a video of one that's run a marathon, 26 miles or whatever it is, and right before the finish line they fall down? And that one has a heart to finish so much that they literally crawl across the finish line. Well, saints, I feel like that today. The finish line is in front of us. It can't be long before the Lord comes. I want to finish. I want you to finish. I just don't want to have been in this race, but I want to finish. Let's look at 2 Timothy 4. While you're turning there, I'm going to get a drink. 2 Timothy 4. We'll look at verse 6 through 8. This is Paul. For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. Love his appearing. This letter, just to kind of set the scene for Paul, this letter was written to Timothy while Paul was in a dungeon. It was in prison. The only contact that he had with the outside world was an 18-inch square in the ceiling of his cell. When he penned this, it wasn't but a few months after this that he was beheaded. And he knew he was already condemned to die, and he knew his race was almost over. But what an encouraging words that he spoke or had written to Timothy. Excuse me. This was really his dying declaration. The things that people say on their deathbed so many times are obviously what's on their heart. As they pour out their heart to their loved ones or whoever's around them, they cut through the chase. There's no more life to be lived. They want to say what is important, and we see that Paul here had given us some words of wisdom, and we can learn from them today. We know that our race is almost won. We know this time that we have in front of us, it looks as though we don't know exactly, but we do know the signs of the time. We're told to look upon those and to realize that the Lord is coming. So God help us to do that. What can we learn from these few verses today? First thing he says, I am ready. I am ready. I have been around people about to die. I can think of one that stood out to me just a few hours before Brother Warren Trotter passed away. I was in the hospital room with him. He was hurting with a lot of pain. I don't know how many of you knew Brother Warren. A little tall, lanky guy. But he had the biggest smile on his face. He had the biggest smile on his face. And he would look at me every once in a while, and he would just point that long arm with one finger towards the ceiling. He couldn't speak, but I knew what Brother Warren was saying. I'm going to heaven. I'm ready. I have lived my life for the Lord. Sister Trotter was there. Sister Lola Wright was there. And I was there. What a privilege. What a privilege to watch someone who was ready. Well, Paul was ready. He had that same mindset. He was ready to go. He was ready to die. Verse 7 also says he had to fight. Now think about this. Here he was about to go, but he wanted to remind Timothy that he had to fight to get to the place that he was at. Saints of God, I want you to know that we got to fight to get to the finish line. If we have to crawl across the finish line, God help us to crawl. If we got to walk, help us to walk, God. If we got to run, help us to run, God. But whatever it takes to get across the finish line, there is no doubt about it. Don't let anybody fool you. You will fight to get across the finish line. Why is that? Because we have an adversary. Oh, we got a devil that fights us tooth and nail. Right up until the time that we'll take our last breath. Right up to the time that we'll reach across, the devil will be there. There's no doubt. But praise God, God will be there too. But we will have to fight. It is not, you've heard, being a parent, you can't be a wimp or something like that if you're going to have children. Sister Stacy, you're no wimp, are you? Sit there and chase those babies. How beautiful it is. Couldn't wait to get out here and see her new little one. But if you're going to be an overcoming Christian, you can't be a wimp. You cannot be weak. You better be strong. I will tell you, you better find your way to Christ in prayer daily. You better study His Word. You better give Him all that you got. Whatever it takes to get across the finish line, get there. You will have to battle. I remember one time early in my walk with the Lord, there were some things this young lady that testified over here, I know what she talks about. So there was things going on in my life that I thought would never, ever, ever go on. I had been saved. These things, there's no way that I should have to go through these things. I was so discouraged. I was so almost ready to give up. And I thought, I will just go by the church. Before we moved to the Van Buren Church, there at the Johnson Street Church, it was just an old cabinet shop is what it was, converted into a church. But that's where I'd gotten saved. God had sanctified me there, so I knew God was there. I knew God can answer my prayers there. So I just went over by the church, and I just got on my knees before God, and I just spilled myself out there in front of Him. I was in the battle of my life. I had thought about giving up. I don't know if any of you all have ever been to there. I hope not. But I will tell you, the old enemy was battling me tooth and nail. He was trying to destroy me. Just me and God. I cried out to God, and He heard my cry. I told Him, I don't know what to do, God. And I even told Him, Lord, I'm just going to come. This may sound bad, but I will say anything. I said, I'm just going to come to church for You. That's it. I can only focus on You. I can't focus on anything else. I just got to get a hold of You, God. I cannot have anything else to focus on but You. Psalms 18:6 says, in my distress, I called upon the Lord. I want you to know, you may not have anybody else in this world to call upon, but you can call upon the Lord, and the Lord will answer your prayer. He will touch you in a way that you know that you have touched the throne of God. He will answer you definitely. He will answer you without question. But I'll tell you something, you better dump your heart upon the altar. If we humble ourselves before the Lord. You see, the Lord speaks a language, and that language always starts with a humble heart in front of Him. You cannot come before God without humbleness, and He hears you, because that's one of the recipes for Him to answer your prayer. Come in honesty, come humbly before the Lord. But I had a heart to finish after that day. I had a heart to finish this race. Paul also said in verse 7, he said to Timothy, I have finished my course. I'll tell you, folks, when we get to that point, we'll realize I have finished this race. Oh, praise God. What a wonderful day that will be. He proclaimed through all these battles, these wounds. You ever felt like you've been wounded by the devil? By someone that's come to you and wounded your heart? Wounded yourself, wounded your life? You'll have a few of those. Well, we have to forgive, don't we? That's part of it too. But here he is. He was wounded. He was hurt. He was about to die. And then he says, I have kept the faith. Well, how in the world does that happen? How could somebody go through what Paul went through and still keep the faith? Well, you know what he did? He did it only with the help of God. Can I say the same today? Can you say the same today? I have kept the faith. I have more faith now. I will tell you, I'm more in love with God now than I've ever been in my life. I love the gospel. I love God's people. I loved God's work. I'm in love with God. I am not ashamed to say that. Praise God. He kept the faith. I want to keep the faith too. How is your race tonight? How is your race tonight? Evaluate You know, like I said, it's one thing to start. It's another thing to finish. When I was in high school, we had, I played basketball. I'll say I played. I was on the team. I kind of was down at the back of the bench, bottom of the bench, wherever it was. But I was able to make the team. One of the things that we had to do in off season, they called it, our coach Parker would get us in condition. And one of the last things that we did when we were conditioning was he had a Monte Carlo car. I'll never forget, a tan Monte Carlo car. And we would go out in front of the gym. He would get in his car, roll his window down, and just go. That meant we were to follow him. He would drive along the side of the road with his flashers on, and we would start to run. And you ran, and you ran, and you ran. You didn't know how far. You didn't know how far Coach Parker was going to take you. He had I can just remember this one year, he had a 5-mile journey that we had to go on. Now, the rules were this. In order for you to make the basketball team, this was off season, in order for you to make the basketball team, one thing, you had to finish this race. If you didn't finish, I don't care who you were or how talented you were, you could not play on the team. So we wanted to be in condition for this last race. 5 miles, he went, up and down hills. Now, there was another rule. If you ever stopped, you had to walk the rest of the way. And that is not finishing. That was just, you had to start the next day. The ones that didn't finish lined up behind the brown Monte Carlo. He went like this. And they went again. And they went again. You either gave up and you knew you were not going to be on the team, or you got in condition to finish the race. God help us to have the tenacity to finish the race. How is your spiritual condition? Does it say, I'm finishing this race? Is it kind of wishy-washy? Well, you know, it doesn't have to be. Tonight, that can be changed tonight. But you know why there was in basketball, it was just to make the team. Paul gives us here in verse 8, he lets us know what motivated him. It's interesting how he said it. He said, henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness. He knew waiting for him was a crown. A crown, folks. He knew that, and he mentioned that. He wasn't boasting. He knew he had finished this course for a reason. Now, we knew it was for heaven, but he knew what was waiting for him. A crown that was going to be given to him by a righteous judge. Oh, praise God, a righteous judge was going to give him that. And he said also, shall give me that day, he says, and not to me only. Praise God. He said, you and I have something to look forward to. He said that for generations to come, those who finished the race, those who said, God, I'm going to do it no matter what, would get a crown of righteousness. It would be finished. It would be handed out by the Lord, the righteous judge. Folks, do you have a heart to finish tonight? I hope you do. I hope you've been encouraged this weekend. I want you to, this year, to seek God with all your heart. If you've slacked up tonight, get before God and say, I'm done dragging my feet. God, help me. Help me to run the race that I'm supposed to run, that I know I'm supposed to run. God, I'll be faithful to run it. You just got to help me. But he also said this in closing. those that love his appearing. The most significant part. Are you so much in love with the Lord that you just cannot wait for his appearing? You see, that's who the Lord is coming back for. The ones who love his appearing. Praise God, we all have an opportunity once again tonight. I'm so thankful for our altars. Please take advantage of them. Yes. We love you folks. Yeah. We appreciate you so much. We thank you for inviting us out here. It has been a true blessing for us. Let's all pray together as the saints of God.